Hey everybody, welcome back to Front Page Fitness. This is episode number 18. I am still Eric Trexler, still joined by the Dr. Lauren Colenso Semple. Lauren, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing great. Our recent episode is already getting some very interesting comments. People like the whole idea of fitness just for redheads.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come up with some more, even more niche schemes.
I want to be very clear about my stance on this. I feel like a politician embroiled in scandal here. I believe all gingers should have access to fitness services. And I believe I made that very, very clear. But apparently people are also enthusiastic about ginger-only fitness services, which is not something I anticipated among my constituents. So you learn something new every day. I'm adapting, I'm growing, and I will take note of that. And maybe the 19-year-old business influencers were right. Maybe it is appropriate to niche down to the most granular possible level. Maybe that's good business.
Someone suggested for fitness for gingers only in Canada.
Oh, yeah, the Canadian ginger fitness population. I assume that must be smaller than the global ginger fitness population. But yeah, you could really narrow that down. You could really you might just cold call one person to be like, hey, I started a fitness business for you. This is all I do is make fitness services that are catered to you. And if you say no, I'm done. Like I got nothing left. Maybe that would be a good sales pitch. Sometimes I feel like that is the sales pitch I'm getting with, I get a lot of folks in my DMs, like being a lazy person with a following that's larger than a personal page, but not a large fitness page. I get a lot of DMs from people who say like, they give me just like a canned thing they send to 100 people a day, but they're like, bro, love your content. Love the way you educate people about your topic of choice. But I noticed that your Instagram sucks, and I want to take you to the moon with business strategies to grow. But yeah, sometimes I'll look at them and they'll be like, listen, I am a social media strategist. I can get you millions of followers immediately. Then I'll look at their page and they have like 13 followers. And I'm like, you have like 170 posts and 13 followers. I'm not sure if I want your social media advice, you know?
I'm getting so many of those via email, and I never respond, obviously. I just delete them, and they relentlessly follow up.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I don't just work with anyone, as if like I should feel privileged to receive their sales pitch.
I think you misread that email. What they were telling you is, I don't work with anyone. It's the, please hire me. No, it's I respect the grind and the hustle, but I do think that a lot of it, the reason I'm so critical of it is because it does kind of reek of that like shortcut to the end point kind of thing where it's like, bro, you're 18 and a half. Like you don't need to like be spamming people all day. Like go and like learn some of these skills, team up with some people, build a company. Versus just sending me a sequence of 5 emails that are increasingly desperate. But hey,
The
like I said, I appreciate the grind.
the other grift that I've been getting multiple times per week is these, where you've been nominated as such and such like fitness person of the year, and for a fee of $650 like you could be included in like MSN's top fitness professional. Like, who does this?
Yeah. No, that's an interesting one that I think a lot of folks outside of the business wouldn't be aware of is that, yeah, there are some of these like small scale like awards where they're just like, hey, we'll give this to you, but you have to pay us. Another one that is out there is you can pay a variety of online outlets to just do like a special article on you talking about how successful you are and how great you are, and sometimes they'll treat it like a little puff piece, but they sought you out for it. And then sometimes they'll actually treat it like there is like a fake news article business, like an industry where they will basically report on your company if like just whatever the most recent thing you did, as if it's like a game changing, like, oh, so and so company is resetting the industry with this major innovation. And it's like, you just paid them to give you a little press release. But But yeah, it's really weird out there. Once you like form an LLC and have an email with it, your life gets worse. It is basically the moral of the story.
It's like mostly junk and then occasionally an email that you actually care to read.
Yeah, but you would never find it. It's buried in so much junk. Lord knows the opportunities that have passed me by. But speaking of emails, Lauren, you mentioned somebody emailed you a very intriguing question about, I think, locating your partner, your spouse.
Well, since this is a podcast about relationship advice, and you and I are relationship experts and we dole out excellent advice, this listener was wondering if we condone sharing your location with your partner.
Hmm. If I condone it. Well, who am I to say, first of all? I mean, I am a relationship expert in the sense that I currently maintain a relationship. So, I mean, you can't be more relationshipy than that. Um, I don't know. My wife and I operate very differently compared to the norm. I think we're very close, but we're very independent. So like she knows that a lot of times on Saturdays I'm going to be working like a full day and I'll do it somewhere outside of the house. And so like she will have no idea where I am. And sometimes when my parents are visiting us, they're very jarred by that. They're very confused. They'll ask my wife, "Where's Eric?" And she'll say, "I couldn't tell you. I don't know what city he's in." Because I live at the convergence of like three different cities. And they find that I think it's like a generational thing to be very jarring and very unusual. So needless to say, we are not location sharers. The it I can't even be bothered to tell her what city I'll be in and when I'm leaving and when I'll be back. But hey, I view that as a positive thing because we have other stuff going on and we have a high level of trust. That's how I spin it. But what about you? Do you have a track like known trackers and then secret trackers? Do you have a whole tracking system?
I just have a whole separate phone, so the location that is tracked, I have never leaves the house, so I'm always home.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're not putting like an air tag under the mirror of his car or anything just to keep an eye on it.
I do have his location, and I do. Um, and I don't remember like at what point in our relationship that happened. I feel like we did it for a reason. Like if you're in some situation where you would need to find each other or and I will check it for things like I'm making dinner, I'm wondering how far away he is.
Yeah. No, I
And
mean
it's easier than calling if he's driving or texting or whatever.
there are ample scenarios where I could find it to be very useful. I think a lot of people will initially go to like, what, you don't trust where they are or, something like that. But there's so many practical reasons that, like you said, it'd be good to know, like, oh, you said you're going to be home at 5:30, but you're clearly 15 minutes away. Right. So there's that. And then also, I think he mentioned he likes to go hunt or no, not hunt, but camp in like random places off the grid and just kind of create his own campsite. I feel like as almost as a safety measure, probably good to have some tracking going on for that as well.
Yes, since I consume so much true crime, I regularly think about the possibility that, someone is going to get murdered. And for that reason, it can be good to know one's location or at least approximate location.
Yeah. I think with me, I'm not going to pretend this is a good thing, but this is just, it's baked into my DNA at this point, and I don't think I can change it. Part of me really resists technology. I understand that is not, I get the irony and the hypocrisy of that because everything I do is technologically enabled, doing podcasting and video and live and, live streaming. And I help with, I consult with some app companies and stuff. So I get it. But at the same time, I am the kind of person I resisted getting a smartphone until I was the last person I knew who didn't have one.
And I believe you still have an iPhone 6 or something.
Five, but guess. But yeah, I resisted it for as long as possible. The first model I got is the model I've maintained forever. And I'm one of those people who I will put my phone away for 11 hours and not check it, because that's still my default lifestyle. So yeah, I don't like the general concept of kind of like digitally integrating my life and kind of keeping tabs on things. I prefer to shake off those digital tabs as much as possible and only engage with technology when absolutely necessary. So yeah, I just don't feel like I could ever really get into the digital tracking mindset. It's just not me. You know what I mean?
I know it's really common for people to track their kids.
Again, I could see that. You want to make sure you know where they are. You want to keep an eye on them, make sure they're not. I tell you what, being a kid sounds hard these days. Now that I think about it, like
Yeah.
I try to think back to like, man, I couldn't have got away with any of the stuff I did for fun in the modern world.
I
Uh,
constantly said I was at Starbucks or the movies. I never was.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you had that one friend who, oh yeah, we're going to so and so's house, and then you go wherever you're going to be going, right? Like the night unfolds, who knows what's going to happen, but yeah.
We invented a friend that like didn't even exist. Because when you got caught with something, it was like, oh, that's Alexa's.
Yeah, I can't believe she did that. She left that bag of weed in the back seat of the car. No, no, I just, as we were being very harsh on the young people with their slang recently, but this is starting to make me rethink, like, maybe we should cut them some slack because, like, yeah, they're being digitally tracked everywhere they go. If they're having a bad day, now they just get like cyberbullied 24/7 a day, 24/7 for their entire life. So I feel like technology has particularly made life terrible for young people. So if they want to have some very questionable slang, I personally think we should, as a show, have a policy to let it slide.
I'm not willing to go that far, but I agree with you that being chronically online at 14, 15, it sounds like a really, really terrible idea because anything that I would have posted then certainly is not something I would be proud to, have permanently on the internet today.
Yeah, yeah, this is all a big mistake, but we do have some content here, fitness related, about Gen Z and millennials. So this kind of millennials are getting to the point where we're old people. I don't know. You don't. I don't imagine you interact with too many young people, but I'm on a college campus like 5 days a week now, and this might hurt you to know, but if you were born in the 20th century, people start to like get really jarred by that. Like, oh my God, you were born in the 1900s. So we are far enough away from like being born in the 90s that we are being viewed as born in a different century. So millennials is a stretch. Like we can't claim to be young anymore, but this also pertains to Gen Z. And apparently in Gen Z, Jazzercise is making a comeback, which is very surprising to me. So what did you glean about this from the hallowed pages of the New York Post?
Well, I personally have never known anyone that did jazzercise. Step aerobics, yes.
Big time.
Um,
Big time.
but not jazzercise per se. So I was surprised to see this one as well. Um, I don't I think all this dance cardio stuff is always marketed as, oh, and look at the amazing things it's going to do to transform your body composition. And then it doesn't do that. But,
Yeah.
it's all good. I remember Zumba was really big when I was teaching group fitness and stuff. I did not teach dance cardio. I taught like circuit training classes.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that would be a stretch for you. That's not really your sweet spot. But you know what? I'm looking through this article. It looks like the granddaughter of the person who founded Jazzercise is in on this. She's running some classes. I like it in general. The one thing I have a question about, so I don't know if you'll know this, Lauren, because like I said, this isn't really your wheelhouse here, but when they say Jazzercise, do they literally mean jazz? Because like I used to, dabble in jazz band, and I never was like, this is like some good group exercise music that we're making here. So to me, it would be very, very surprising of all the music genres to be dancing to jazz specifically. I mean, the whole thing with jazz, the time signature is meandering, it changes. I mean, you can't really get on a beat and keep it.
No, it's not to jazz music.
That's well, okay. I'm equal parts like on one hand, as a musical purist, I'm hurt by that because I'm like, why are you doing this? Why would you call it jazzercise? On the other hand, I'm relieved because the idea of, I mean, jazz is, frankly, if you're not accustomed to it, it's a tough listen. You got to really sit with it, and it's a very cerebral form of music. So I'm relieved to know that people are not standing around with dumbbells trying to like figure out the time signature and just looking at each other very confused. But in any
No,
case,
it's like jazz hands.
okay, okay, if you say so. Um, but yeah, I like you said, I think a lot of times these types of things can overpromise, underdeliver in terms of the tangible effects on body composition, for example. But what I like about this kind of thing, and I grow to appreciate more and more as I get older, being someone born in the 1900s, is that they do seem to be like these types of classes seem to be particularly good at creating a sense of community, for, where people will go to a fitness class, make friends and retain those friendships moving forward. It seems to be, seems to lend itself to that, which is awesome. And of course, you're getting in there, you're doing something, it's social. There's direct health effects of just being social in general. But then on top of that, you're getting your heart rate up. So it certainly beats a variety of other ways you could spend that 30 or 60 minutes. So I'm not going to be critical of it. I'm going to support it. You'll never catch me dead in such an environment. I'm
I'd
not
love to
very,
see it.
I'm not a very outgoing person, and that transcends into like honestly, even like I found when I was younger, being in different religious services, once things started to get into like singing and kind of gesturing and things like that, I was like, can I just like sit here and take in the theology? I much preferred a very cerebral type of religious service. And once there was anything in the realm of singing and potentially even dancing, I was extremely uncomfortable immediately. So,
Will you dance at a wedding?
uh, you know, one of the many things I love about my wife, and she does listen to the show every now and then, so this is a good time to mention that I do love and appreciate her. She does not dance at weddings, and I do not dance at weddings, and it's a beautiful thing. But there is one flaw with that system, which is that one time I went to a wedding that she could not attend. And that was a painful experience for me, because when you and your spouse are not wedding dancers, you're hanging out at a wedding. You go hit the bar, you do what you want to do, you're hanging out, you're socializing. But I just kind of felt like that one weird guy who doesn't enjoy dancing was just kind of sitting at a table. And then like, man, the worst part is then someone will like come up and give you like the sympathy, like, hey, come on out here, have fun with everybody. And you're like, yeah, it's really not my thing. And now I feel even weirder that people are trying to socialize with me out of sympathy rather than just like saying, hey. So while I appreciate the gesture, then you're like, man, I really am a loser now. So, so all that is to say, long answer. I don't dance at weddings, but I have a policy now. If my wife can't go to the wedding, I'm out.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Well,
I didn't take you for a wedding. I'll dance at a wedding. I'm the
you know,
cool one, so naturally I'm gonna do the cool thing.
yeah, that no, that checks out. Yeah, I'm just like clinically pathologically introverted, and so dancing for me, I just can't swing it. But we have another headline on a similar topic here. This is a little bit. This one better be named on the nose because otherwise, I have a million questions. But from the same New York Post, the only headline that you provided was Slashercise. So, what in the world are people doing now?
So this is a studio in LA called Killer Fitness, and the slasher size workouts involve stabbing movements, plastic chainsaws, and serial killer videos.
Yeah, this is some kind of something. I'm taking in the content on this web page here. It is a multimedia experience, a lot going on here. Given that you, of the two of us, you are more the true, well, you are a true crime aficionado. I do not engage with that genre at all. So how do you feel about this? Is this something you could get behind and get into?
This is weird. Like, I know we were saying that, we support niching down, but this is quite the niche.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get a vibe here. There's a lot to take in because one of the people I'm trying not to be judgmental. I'm just trying to characterize, a little theater of the mind here for the viewers and listeners. One person, they have a bit of a like goth aesthetic, I would say. And yet there's a lot of like neon kind of like dance club aesthetic going on at the same time. So yeah, it's just visually a lot to take in. I'm not quite sure I can wrap my head around uh the whole vibe here, but again, the same perspective I had on Jazzercise. If it's what it takes to get out there and make some friends and have some have a little bit of aerobic activity, then I'm all for it. I do one thing that we will have to hash out privately is I have a problem with the glorification of serial killers on an emotional level and on an intellectual level. I find it to be highly troubling, which is going to cause a rift between you and I. So we should probably sort that out privately. But
I,
that is
I don't know what a serial killer video would entail, but it doesn't seem like it would have a place in a group exercise class.
yeah. I'm hoping that my hope is that they're just doing like slasher video, like fictional, Freddy Krueger, Friday the 13th, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Hopefully it's all fictionalized stuff because otherwise, yeah, that'd be just a very unusual vibe. Well, I mean, it's already
You're just like surrounded by pictures of Ted Bundy, like while you're doing curls.
yeah. So this one, if someone came to me and said, I'm going to get into this, I would say, can I instead convince you of jazzercise? Can I meet me halfway here? But
Maybe it's just the marketing, but it also looks like you have to get in a full Halloween costume in order to participate.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's a lot of work to prepare for the gym.
it's true, but like at the same time, you know, you would certainly feel some kind of way about getting all dolled up in your Halloween attire, but also you go in here to work out and you're not in that kind of attire. That would be an even more kind of unusual experience. You're just kind of in there in your normal gym gear, using a chainsaw as a fitness prop. So I don't know. There's a lot going on here, but here's what I will say, tying it back to last episode. This is not my niche. This marketing is not tailored to me, but I understand what they're doing here. They're saying, hey, we believe that there is some unique thing that people might latch on to here, and that's our niche. That makes a lot more sense than just saying, you know what, we're doing a fitness studio. No people with brown hair. You're not allowed in. This is the ginger fitness studio. So I at least this is what niching down is in theory supposed to look like, is saying, hey, let's have a wacky little experience here. So it's not the wacky little experience for me, but it is wacky, and certainly it is an experience. All right, Lauren, should we get into some hard-hitting health information?
Let's do it.
Okay, so you wrote an article, or you wrote a headline that I don't enjoy here. This is from news.com out of Australia, it looks like. And it says study shows just one can of diet soft drink increases diabetes risk. So that is troubling. I've been known to drink more than a couple diet sodas. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so this is apparently really making the headlines and then going around in Australia. And well, the the article makes it very much sound like we really need to get rid of diet soda, it's just as bad as full sugar soda. And I think we briefly touched on this in a previous episode when we were talking about um, the Coke with cane sugar is it going to replace the Coke with the high fructose corn syrup. So it's sort of on the line, along the same lines with that sort of messaging. But I mean, they this actual study looked at the association of beverage intake with type 2 diabetes. So we're looking at, are you consuming sugar-based sodas or are you consuming diet sodas? And then what was the relationship with type 2 diabetes? However, uh, there's there's many reasons, other reasons that can contribute to the development of type 2 diabetes. And so I think the article is really presenting this in a causal way of, one diet soda a day equals you're going to increase your risk for type 2 diabetes. And that is pretty disingenuous. Um, because it's not accurately representing what the study really did. And that's a kind of a theme in the next couple stories.
Yeah, yeah. And so just looking, sometimes you can look at the quote and kind of backtrack to what probably happened in this study, because I didn't read the study, which is it's always a good spot to be in, talking about a study you didn't read. It's kind of
100%.
my sweet spot.
Yeah.
But it says drinking one or more of these beverages each day, whether sweetened with sugar or artificial substitutes, was linked to a significantly higher chance of developing type 2 diabetes. And so probably what we're looking at here is, they're just kind of saying like, are you drinking diet soda or regular soda or neither, right? And so you start then thinking, in an observational study, meaning it's not like they were just handing out packs of diet soda randomly to a specific subgroup of people. In an observational study, you might say, well, what are some of the characteristics and habits and behaviors and correlates that may be observed in conjunction with a higher propensity to drink full sugar soda or diet soda? And a lot of people who drink diet soda are people who used to drink regular soda, and generally have a dietary pattern that was, hypercaloric, a lot of, what might be colloquially called junk food, often tends to associate with the development and progression of obesity and type 2 diabetes. And a lot of times you do see that people who either have type 2 diabetes or were already kind of on that road, switch to diet soda. And so a lot of studies like these may, there's a lot of different ways to look at this with different study designs, but a lot of the observational work here often is just pointing to the fact that you look at somebody who was on this trajectory to developing type 2 diabetes, they are currently drinking diet soda, and you say, wow, looks like diet soda drinkers are really on a crash course with diabetes, and you've got the causation all wrong. They're drinking diet soda because they're a little bit concerned about the fact that over the years, they've been on this trajectory kind of inching closer to, a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. And one of the reasons that I'm very comfortable recklessly speculating about what probably went on in this study is, with any body of research like this, we're going to most of the time have access to many different forms of research. We're going to have the observational stuff that's cross-sectional, where we just get a group of people in the room one time and say, what do you do and what does your health look like? We're going to have some that are prospective, where we say, hey, you do what you normally do. We just want to see how your health changes over the next 15 years and just kind of keep track of what you're doing. And then, of course, there's the randomized controlled trials where they say, we want to get in 100 people that are generally representative of the population. We want to randomly allocate them into groups and then intervene. We want to actually change what they do. So maybe we're going to give half of them a full sugar soda every day, or let's say a third of them full sugar soda every day, a third of them a diet soda every day, and then a third of them just a water or a seltzer or whatever you want to do. And so then you actually look at, when we intervene and give you this intervention, what actually occurs when all other things are held relatively constant. So obviously, with this kind of research question, we do have quite a few randomized controlled trials, which present a much higher level of rigor in terms of determining the direction and magnitude of causation. And I am pleased to report, Lauren, as a person who very much enjoys a good diet soda every now and then, in the randomized controlled trials, diet soda looks great. We do not see issues related to glycemic control or blood sugar control. We do not see progression of obesity induced by drinking diet sodas. And in fact, we often find the opposite, which is that people tend to actually lose a little bit of weight in those trials, either a neutral or modest reduction in body weight. So yeah, it's very unfortunate to see some of these studies talked about in the media without the proper context and caveats, because it gives people not just a false impression, but an impression that will lead them to make decisions that ultimately are not what they would make if they had all the information available. It's a clumsy way of saying it, but basically it's very possible that if they were given the full information, they would have made an informed choice that was quite different than the impression they're walking away with. So always a bummer to see that. And the only bright side is that it keeps us around, Lauren. That's what we're here for, is to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, one of the most egregious examples of a study like this that got super hyped up in the media and was just a clear error was when there were headlines that, coffee causes cancer and they didn't control for smokers.
Yeah.
And, so
Was that recent?
this was a while ago.
Okay.
I think we've since learned that, it wasn't the coffee, it was the smoking that was causing the cancer. But it's just an example of when you're doing research like this and you get kind of tunnel vision looking at the wrong thing, or I feel like some of these studies are actually, they're kind of designed to produce the outcome that the authors are interested in, and along the way you can avoid looking at these other way more influential factors that influence the outcome of interest, and yet you're left with this headline that kind of scares everybody into focusing on the wrong things instead of the bigger things.
Yeah, that is a great example though. Like, it wasn't just one study. I mean, if you look back in like the 80s and 90s, people were convinced that coffee was kind of a guilty pleasure, and they're like, yeah, I know I shouldn't do it, but I do. And there was a very significant belief, a significant portion of the population was pretty convinced that coffee did increase cancer risk. And eventually over time, people started saying, well, in this study, if we controlled for smoking, and in that study, if we controlled for smoking. And so now that's why I asked if this was recent, was because it was such a, everyone in nutritional epidemiology was like kind of super embarrassed, because they're like, I can't believe we missed that over and over and over, and became like a big story. But it is a great example of why with nutritional epidemiology, the papers come out quick, they come out easy. They get headlines because everybody engages with these kind of, it's a study about a thing everybody drinks. It's a study about a thing everybody eats. But you really do have to take a moment to kind of sit with the information and say, okay, well, this study, let's say it's 1988, it found that people who drink coffee have a higher risk of lung cancer. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Who is drinking the most coffee, and what does that context look like? And and what you start to figure out is that, like, yeah, people who enjoy a good pick-me-up black cup of coffee at 8 p.m., they might also enjoy a little pick-me-up from a little bit of nicotine. And you start to find that it is true that smokers drink more coffee than non-smokers. And so you start piecing it together and saying, well, like, what's more likely? That somehow coffee is infiltrating the lung and causing this cancer? Or is it that, we have a kind of a confounding variable that's ultimately causing that? So it's a good example that translates to just about everything in nutritional epidemiology. And it also creates the world we live in today, which is where people argue so much about whether a particular food or beverage or diet is healthy or unhealthy is because we can look at it about 100 different ways. That doesn't mean all 100 of them are equally valid or rigorous. But there's always fodder for disagreement and argument because of these confounding factors.
And speaking of type 2 diabetes, our next headline is another one. And apparently, maybe we should be worried about our potato intake.
Mm.
And guys, lo and behold, the study looked at French fry consumption. And shockingly, fries are associated with type 2 diabetes.
You don't say. You know what's kind of interesting about this though? I need to find this to refresh my memory a little bit, but I remember back in the day, not too long ago, I wrote an article for the Mass Research Review about a randomized controlled trial on French fries, which was awesome. You know, you don't get a lot of those. Because you think about it, like, what does it look like to have French fries? You're probably not sitting down and having simply French fries. You're having a burger and French fries and a beer. And when you finish that beer, maybe you say, yeah, go ahead and bring another one, right? Like if I'm having fries, that's pretty much what it looks like. And if I'm doing that frequently, I'm not eating a very health compatible dietary pattern, right? I'm kind of checking every box you don't want to check. And so the title of my article was French Fries, Completely Vindicated and Back on the Menu. Because it turns out if you give people in the form of a randomized controlled trial, like we're going to give you 300 calories worth of French fries or 300 calories worth of almonds, and then have a control group as well. It turns out if you just say, hey, do your normal stuff and just have this serving of French fries, I think it was daily or something approximately daily, it actually didn't really do anything at all. There was three groups: almonds, potatoes, or the French fry group. There was a different form of potato they gave them, but they were all the same amount of calories. So, it was almonds, regular French fries, and seasoned French fries. Because of course, why not check to see if the seasoning is what purpose it over the top? But anyway,
what is an unseasoned French fry? Like a saltless French fry?
no,
That sounds bad.
salt. I think with the seasoned one, they did like a combination of herbs and spices. Kind of like you ever get those like luxury French fries where you're like, oh, this is a really classy experience. So we were doing just the salt, or we were doing the full herb and spice mixture there. And yeah, it turns out, everybody's body just reacted like you gave them 300 extra calories. Didn't really matter what it was. And in fact, they didn't really gain a meaningful amount of fat over the course of this trial. They kind of just ate 300 fewer calories of other stuff. But again, it leads into that thing of like, if we go and look at a food that is commonly consumed in a high calorie meal, with, like I said, fatty meat and cheese and probably a couple beers, we can start to imagine these observational scenarios where we say, oh my God, it looks like potatoes are terrible. And it's like, well, are you looking at potatoes or are you looking at French fries? And are you looking at French fries or are you looking at a meal or a dietary pattern that tends to have a lot of French fries in it, which is maybe you're going to Chick-fil-A and getting chicken nuggets and French fries. So all that is to say, yeah, you really have to be careful with this kind of stuff. And Lauren, I have to say, I'm a huge advocate of the humble potato. Potatoes are incredible. From a health perspective, if you're actually eating a potato and not a meal that happens to contain French fries, there's a lot to like. A white potato, I believe, has more potassium per serving than a banana, even though banana has good marketing. The banana,
Big banana
lobby out there, Big Banana, is out there trying to convince you it's the only food with potassium. So, rich in potassium, rich in vitamin C. You can switch it up, go from white potato to sweet potato. There's a million kinds of potatoes. And what you will find, Lauren, and I will stake my reputation on this, if you go in and you chop up your potatoes and you put them on a baking sheet and you throw them in the oven with salt, pepper, maybe additional herbs and spices if you wish, what you're going to end up with is a product that is quite healthy, easy to make, relatively quick, and ultimately doesn't taste that much worse than a very, very high calorie serving of French fries. Like what you tend to find is like you can make some pretty lowish calorie French fry adjacent potato product that tastes very much, I wouldn't say as good, but it's in the ballpark.
What is a new potato?
A what?
A new potato.
Did I say a new potato?
No, but you see it. You see signs for new potatoes.
Oh, I've never seen such a thing. I'm very confused.
Well, it's always it's I don't get it because you obvious yeah I don't know. Oh, new potatoes are freshly harvested young or small potatoes.
You must be shopping at a different tier of grocery store than I am. We don't get these luxury tiny potatoes. We're
I just
doing
don't know why they're called
clump
new.
potatoes. Um, but yeah, if you want to have a new potato, it's going to be tough to fashion those into French fries because they look like they're basically a spherical object of about 1 inch in diameter. So you're not going to be able to get a lot of fries out of each. But my point stands, Lauren. Have you ever tried to do like a lowish calorie French fry type of thing, or like a lowish calorie, like a thick potato chip?
I haven't done it, but I've thought about it. I've seen people do it. Also, people use air fryers for that, and if you apparently if you slice it
Oh,
very thin, then that can work. I do not consume a lot of potatoes.
how are your potassium levels?
Maybe they're low. I should probably up my potato intake. I don't
Have
really eat bananas either. So,
Have you ever sought treatment for scurvy?
no, I have not.
Have you ever thought about it? Because if you're ever on the fence and you think you might have scurvy, I would get that checked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will look into that. Thank you.
Side note related to that. Eric with the rare entertainment recommendation. This is not something I do, Lauren, but
Okay.
there was a like mini series or show called The Terror, and the first season it was about like a group of people who were sailing up in your neck of the woods in like the Northern Passage up up tippy top in the Arctic waters of North America. Um, I don't know if it's called the Northern Passage, but it was way up north. We're talking up Canada way. But anyway,
Okay.
it was following them as they were sailing, and that was back before we figured out like how to not get scurvy if you were like a sailor on a long journey. So scurvy played a major role in it, and it really made me appreciate being born at a time where we figured out that a little bit of vitamin C will do the trick because it is not a fun thing to have, Lauren.
Did people die of scurvy on that game, The Oregon Trail, or was it just dysentery?
Ooh, I don't know.
Throwback for our fellow millennials.
That's a major throwback. How would you describe that game? Because I vaguely have like a memory of it existing, but I don't remember actually playing it at all.
So you'd play it on the computer, and I feel like they had it on the computers at school, and ultimately you were trying to get you know oxen and supplies, and so that you would survive your journey along the Oregon Trail.
Yeah,
But
like a pioneer heading west or something.
yes, but also, then, your livestock would die or your food would go bad and someone would inevitably die of dysentery.
Yeah, that was our idea of a fun game. Was just like the graphics are terrible, the gameplay is limited, and it just gives you anxiety. Okay.
It was not an uplifting game.
It's like we want our kids to have a good time and stimulate their memory. It's like, have you ever thought about just having way more problems in your life but not having any excitement? And that was pretty much my recollection of it. Was just like, great, now I just have a lot of problems that may kill me.
And the translatability to our actual lives was not there at all.
You weren't learning life skills unless you were going to become a pioneer somehow. Yeah, there wasn't a lot to carry over.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, so anyway, back to the topic. Potatoes, A plus plus. Don't get scared out of eating potatoes because some nutritional epidemiology tells us what we already know, which is that if you have a diet that is basically burgers, French fries, and beers, that is probably not going to correlate with a lot of super positive health outcomes. All right, Lauren, we got one more on the list here. I'm intrigued by this one, and I'm going to try not to take it too far off topic because this is something on top of mind for me personally. But the headline here from zmescience.com is cooking from scratch helps you lose more fat, even if the calories are the same as processed foods. So Lauren, tell me all about it.
Well, the article really goes in and says, regardless of calories, if you are eating the processed version, the processed diet versus the minimally processed diet, that it did have effects on body weight. And so this was very much a warning against eating the ultra processed foods. And the scientists were quoted in this article. So we can't just accuse the media of misrepresenting the data, but basically, when you go in and look at what they did, there were a group of people that were assigned to eat a diet that was minimally processed, and a group that were assigned to eat a diet that was more highly processed. But when they report the differences in different clinical markers, body composition, they make a big deal out of the fact that the processing of your food is something that we should be really paying attention to. But at the end of the day, the group that was consuming the ultra processed diet was consuming more calories.
Mm. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but it says the primary outcome was percent weight change. And it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, both of the diets actually resulted in weight loss.
That's true.
So they're basically saying whether you were on the minimally processed or the ultra processed diet, in both cases, you would have lost some weight. You would have lost more weight on the minimally processed diet, but that was because people on the ultra processed diet consume more calories. Is that right?
Correct. And that's not at all surprising, because if you think about eating, a couple protein bars versus eating a calorically equivalent serving of, a piece of chicken and some rice, let's say, whatever. And then you think about the satiety that you're getting from one versus the other. Perhaps if you're just consuming the more processed foods, then you're just going to consume more because you're not eating as food that is as satiating. So I think major flaw that they're making such a big deal out of this, and it's being presented as yet another reminder of how terrible processed food is, which is definitely, that's having a moment, I think, in many countries around the world right now. This study, I believe, was done in the UK. But there's sort of a theme here with the diet soda, and then now with the processed food, where are we actually looking at the big picture, and are we giving people all of the information, or are we just trying to scare people out of eating? I mean, the thing is, people really misunderstand that so much of the food we eat is processed, and that doesn't make it bad.
Right.
Of course, some of it is inherently unhealthy, but protein powder, pretty damn processed.
Yeah.
Pretty good for you.
Yeah, protein powder is one. As a vegetarian, my life is fundamentally better because of the fake meat substitutes that are made out of plants. Those are as processed as a food could possibly be, but when you actually look at them, you find that they are high in protein, the protein that's in there is actually more digestible because of the processing that takes place. And you end up with a high protein, low calorie food that allows you to build meals that you're accustomed to. So it's like a huge net positive, very, very, very positive thing, despite the fact that it is very, very processed by default. So, yeah, I was looking through the paper here, and it looks like, in the minimally processed diet, they basically reduced their calorie intake from baseline by about 500 calories. And then in the ultra processed, they were still eating less than normal, but it was only about 300 calories less than normal. So there's about a 200 calorie gap. So yeah, that's pretty on par with what you'd expect to see in terms of the weight outcomes. It is worth noting that some studies have, rather than trying to put together diets that adhere to dietary guidelines, they've just said, like, we're going to give you either a super processed diet or a super unprocessed diet and just let you do your thing. And some of those find dramatically higher intake of calories on a diet that is ultra processed across the board. But it's really important to recognize the difference between saying everything I eat is going to be ultra processed versus saying I'm going to incorporate some ultra processed foods into a balanced diet. Fundamentally different thing. And it really makes sense why we do have a tendency to overconsume some of these ultra processed foods. I'm not going to pretend that there's like a scientific, like unanimous consensus on this, but my view, coming from having just done a postdoc in evolutionary anthropology, if you look at how humans evolved to eat, every diet grifter is going to pretend that humans evolved to eat the diet that they promote. So you hear people like say, like, vegans, they'll say, oh, humans are vegans by default, or carnivore, we're carnivores by default, or we should be on ketogenic diets by default. And it's all BS. If you look through, and again, my bias is that I'm vegetarian. I'm not going to pretend that that's just like some kind of evolutionary thing if it's not. If you look through all the data we have, the most reliable information we can lean on, humans will eat whatever they can in their immediate environment, and what they choose to eat is going to be dictated, generally speaking, by what has the most energy density. So they are basically looking for foods that are high in calories. And when we were evolving, we did not have bomb calorimeters to determine that. So they would basically say what tastes sweet, what tastes savory. So they were drawn to high sugar, high fat foods. And in the interest of energy density, the best way to kind of tell that is by how the food feels in your mouth. So if you were eating a really tough vegetative food, it would be chewy and hard and rough. You have to chew it like crazy. It would not feel pleasant. Versus if you were having, a very ripe fruit, you would say, oh my God, this is like soft and tasty. And essentially what we're noticing there is a food that is more chewable, more digestible, lower in fiber, generally speaking. So all that is to say, we've kind of evolved across, you go as high or low in latitude as you want. You find me a subsistence population, either current day or in the past. All the evidence would tell us they were just looking for whatever was easiest to eat, high in energy, and generally like fairly low in fiber relative to the other options. And that's what we're doing with ultra processed foods. We're basically engineering them to have excellent mouthfeel. We're taking a lot of the fiber out of it. We're making it a pleasant, palatable experience that tastes great, has fat and sugar and some salt. We're basically engineering things that hit all the highlights of what we're naturally inclined to gravitate toward, and what we have a natural tendency to overconsume if we're eating passively rather than being extremely deliberate about our portion sizes. So all that is to say, when you do see some of the scary headlines about ultra processed foods, it's very important to contextualize, well, why would that happen? It's like, well, because they're great and we like to eat them. Like, think about if you sit down with a little bowl of goldfish crackers, like, you're going to eat a zillion of them because they're awesome. So all the scary stuff, we can basically get around it by having a balanced diet that has a combination of processed and, highly processed and less processed foods. And we can just be mindful of the kind of portions that we're taking when it does come to those really tasty ultra processed foods. But like you said, Lauren, I don't know a lot of people who have a snacking problem of like Beyond Burgers, where they're like, oh my God, I ate 11 Beyond Burgers last night. I just couldn't stop. It comes down to the food. Like, you're gonna be, you're going to tend to overconsume the really snacky stuff that tends to be ultra processed. Crackers, chips, cookies, etc. It's not going to be the Beyond Beef patties. It's not going to be whey protein shakes. I've never in my life heard someone who said, like, I plan to have one whey protein shake, and after the fifth, I just realized I couldn't stop. And I was like, I can't keep whey protein powder in the house anymore because I go after it. You don't hear about that, Lauren.
No, I think about this with fruit too. Like if you think about if like you could have 200 calories of, let's pick any fruit, apple, orange, mango, um and then so what is 200 calories? Like maybe two of those, and then you think about eating like easily 1,000 calories of dried fruit because
Yeah.
it's so easy to overconsume. You would never be able to consume that equivalent of the whole fruit because you have the fiber in the water, and like it doesn't have that hyper palatability. So I think from a practical perspective, it's also convenience with some of this stuff. So you think, if I have it available to me, whether that's I'm driving by that fast food place or I'm gonna have a bunch of microwavable dinners in my freezer or a bunch of snacks in my pantry, and therefore I'm gonna gravitate towards that because it's the easiest thing to grab. It doesn't require a lot of effort. And if that is something that the people struggle with, and then you do end up kind of constantly overeating because you've established that food environment for yourself, then that's the thing to address. Because if you're not surrounded by it, then you're going to make it less easy for you to access it.
Yeah, and getting back to our extremely advanced age, being certified millennials, I think we were the last generation that kind of fell into that. We were kind of the primary generation that got ensnared in that trap where I'm not like an alarmist when it comes to sugar, but I feel like our generation was generally led to believe like if we call it fruit juice, um, that is a healthy thing, like
Or fruit snacks.
and that's what I was gonna get to, is the fruit juice was a gateway because you're like, at least I can believe that fruit was used in the making of this product. Sometimes it wasn't, but at least I could believe that. But like, you tell me this is orange, it tastes citrusy. I can look past the fact that a glass of it has 71 grams of sugar. Um, but anyway, we were a generation when you were talking like regular fruit versus dried fruit. Then the like boss level of that is the fruit snack, which yeah, I remember being young and thinking like, oh yeah, so this basically has like a lot of the vitamins and minerals and stuff. It's just like a little bit different. And I'm looking at this thing, and it is purple, okay, and it is essentially a gummy bear, but it's not shaped like a bear. It is shaped like a little thing of grapes.
Yes, it is.
Many grapes bound together, the way they arrive in nature. And so I definitely, as a child, was like, man, I can't believe that I'm essentially eating grapes, and yet I could eat 3,000 calories of these. Forget about 1,000 calories of dried fruit. You could eat those little gummy snacks all day. So luckily, I think we were the last generation of kids that got kind of scammed into the diet of like fruit juice and fruit snacks as being like pseudo healthy foods. And so that's
Or like yogurt covered raisins instead of chocolate covered raisins.
yeah, which is that's not how yogurt works, by the way. You can't just like solidify it into that mixture. That was just like fundamentally like a milder white chocolate flavor. But anyway, yeah, we really liked our snacks, and we tried so hard to pretend that candy was fruit. And bless our hearts for it. But yeah, I think with processed foods, at the end of the day, the biggest take home point is you got to contextualize it. If you're using ultra processed foods as within the context of a well balanced diet, and you're finding that you're not accidentally over consuming them by tremendous magnitudes, then you probably don't have like a major ultra processed food problem that needs solving. However, if you are noticing that you're passively gaining weight, it's something that causes you concern. Maybe you're experiencing health ramifications or whatever about it concerns you. and you're saying, you know what? I do tend to have a lot of convenience foods around that are very snacky. I couldn't really tell you exactly how much I eat of them every time I snack on them. Um, and they tend to be very tasty, ultra processed, relatively high in calories. That's when you would start to say, not that you have a problem there, but like, hey, there's actually probably some low hanging fruit that I can intervene on here to curb some of this passive weight gain. And who knows, maybe even, move things in the other direction and experience some passive weight loss by saying, instead of snacking on, this high calorie, really palatable thing, maybe I will keep some extra fruit around, and it's just as easy a snack, but you're going to find like, am I really going to sit down and eat 7.5 apples? No. The thing I was eating, would I snack on 7.5 apples worth of calories? Very well, maybe.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of that that is very common is are you eating in a mindful way, or are you eating with a huge bag of chips in front of the TV, or um, eating while you're driving, or there's a lot of ways to put yourself in situations where you don't even realize you just ate all of that.
Yeah. And one thing you can do, it might seem a little silly, but I love me a good flavor blasted goldfish. Have you ever had a flavor blasted goldfish?
I have, and I think it's too much. I like the
Oh,
original.
yeah.
It's just it's too much flavor, too much blast.
That's what people say about me all the time. Eric, too much flavor.
Mm.
Uh, the thing about me is I'm an extremist when it comes to taste. So like I drink black coffee, the most bitter beers I can get my hands on, really spicy stuff. Like for me, everything has to be turned up to 11 because I do not have a sophisticated palate. So why would I eat a watered down, feeble little normal goldfish when I could have a flavor blasted goldfish? But the strategy is, go get a small bowl, and instead of having the giant family sized carton of flavor blasted goldfish in your arm like a football, which is what I've been known to do, instead of that, you put approximately a serving into a bowl, go to where you're going to be, eat your goldfish. And if you want to replenish your bowl, you can, but you cannot pretend you didn't stand up and go replenish it. Like you have to acknowledge when you're on your fourth trip to go get more flavor blasted goldfish, you have to say, okay, intuitively, I now realize how many hundreds of calories this represents because I've gotten up 4 times.
It's funny that you bring up goldfish because I feel like my grocery store is sponsored by goldfish because at every checkout, it's just a huge display of goldfish.
Good for you. I'm glad to hear that Canada's on board with goldfish because
Yeah.
I was curious if there would be some discrepancy in availability. And to me, that would be an absolute shame because it really is the perfect snack. Well, they're not a sponsor of the show. They very well should be. I mean, they're getting free advertising here, but yeah, a good flavor blasted goldfish. Good grief. And you know what's nicer about it? This is kind of gross. My cats love the goldfish flavor, so I will let them kind of lick my fingers when I'm done eating.
You already said that about the popcorn, so it's making me think you do that with all food.
Uh, can I be honest? I just like having attention from my cats. You do it with cats. You kind of have to work for their attention, and it is true that if I have anything salty on my fingers, they do want to come take a lick or two, and so it's just me bonding and getting some quality time with the cats. Is that so bad? Is that so wrong?
No, but you're taking it as they have affection for you when really they're just interested in the food on your fingers.
It could be both. Maybe they're very grateful that I have salty stuff for them. You
That's a
know?
very positive way to look at it, yes.
Yeah. Now it's tough with cats. They don't, you gotta earn those little bits of affection and love. So if it's fraudulent, then so be it. I'll take it. All right,
Sure.
Oren. I believe that's what we got for tonight. So anything you want to tell the good people before we go?
Thank you all for listening. please send us your emails if you have any fun headlines for us to check out at frontpagefitnesspodcast@gmail.com. Rate the show. Give us 5 stars. If you don't want to give us anything close to 5 stars, then don't rate the show. And you can watch it on YouTube, where you can see me do jazz hands.
Mm-hmm.
And did I miss anything?
No, I do want to highlight, not saying this as a complaint, because we haven't really been marketing this podcast in an aggressive way. It is a labor of love, more so than a major commercial product. But I will say, having been involved in many podcasts in the past, this one has an odd ratio of, and again, I appreciate it, what I would consider fairly extreme support relative to the extremely small listenership. Like the normally, if you were like, I have X number of people listening to this, I expect Y number of like genuine interactions with listeners. I am very pleased that we have a very active and very supportive, very positive audience. However, here is your task. In addition to doing all your normal support, go bring people under the tent. Bring them into the fold. They will love it. You will love it. They will appreciate you for doing it. So if everyone listening to this, I crunched the numbers, everyone listening to this recruited 150,000 of their closest friends to listen, we would have one of the largest podcasts in the country.
And I must say this. Someone was hatefully commenting on my Instagram the other day and said, well, everyone is shilling something, you're a grifter too because you have a podcast. And I'd like to say that although I would love to make a lot of money from this podcast, so far I have not made $1. What about you?
I've been meaning to tell you about that. At some point, we should start splitting the revenue. But I felt like I would bring that up when we were both ready to talk about it.
Okay.
So I don't like to get into numbers. It's modest. It's a modest income that I make. I still do all my other jobs for now, but yeah, mostly it's goldfish. The goldfish people pay me a lot. But anyway,
Pepperidge Farm, reach out. Come on.
Yeah. I'll shill pretty much any snack food that I like. That I don't have any scruples or principles in that regard. If you have a salty snack food, I'm pretty much in. All right. So everyone, you've got your homework assignment for the week. Go recruit 150,000 listeners to join the Front Page Fitness Army. And we will see you next week in 7 days with a much larger audience. And as always, we appreciate the support. Everyone take care, and we will be back.